What if the recent wave of strikes across various industries is more than just a demand for better pay and working conditions? What if it's the beginning of a larger movement? Let's unpack this. Over the past few months, we've seen an unprecedented surge in labor activism. Workers from various sectors, from entertainment, automotive, to food and healthcare, are taking to the streets, demanding improved wages, better working conditions, and a guarantee of rest between shifts. Take the United Auto Workers, for instance. They're striking for the first time in 35 years, rejecting a contract offer that included a mere 6% raise. It's not just about the pay though, it's about respect. It's about recognizing the value of their work and their contribution to the company and the economy at large. Then, we have the writers and actors, the creative minds that bring stories to life on our screens. They too are making their voices heard, demanding fair compensation for their creative endeavors. And let's not forget the workers at Kellogg's, who have been on strike for nearly 2 weeks, or the healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente who have authorized a strike. The list goes on. What we're witnessing here is not just a string of unrelated strikes. These are not isolated incidents. They are a collective expression of dissatisfaction, a reaction to years of being undervalued and underpaid. But it's not just about the money, it's about dignity. It's about workers asserting their rights, standing up to corporate greed, and demanding a fair share of the profits they help generate. The impact of these strikes is far-reaching. They're not just disrupting the companies involved, they're shaking up the economy and society as a whole. They're forcing us to confront the deep-seated inequities in our system, to question the status quo, and to imagine a different, more equitable way of doing things. These strikes are not isolated incidents but part of a larger trend, and they may be a precursor to something much bigger. The World Economic Forum has a strategic plan in place, one that could potentially be manipulating these strikes and the broader political landscape. The World Economic Forum, or WEF, is a Geneva-based entity celebrated for its yearly gatherings in Davos, Switzerland. These meetings convene business magnates, international political figures, economists, and journalists to debate on worldwide concerns. But what might escape the public eye is that the WEF has a pronounced agenda centered on labor rights and economic parity. This agenda, detailed in the WEF's yearly Global Risks Report, accentuates the pressing need for a more inclusive and sustainable economic framework. It demands better labor conditions, equitable pay, and a larger cut of economic advantages for laborers. It's not just about economics. The WEF is also a patron of social justice and equality, acknowledging the interconnection of economic and social matters. Now let's examine the recent strikes by United Auto Workers, writers, and actors in light of this. These employees are calling for better compensation, enhanced working conditions, and due respect for their rights. They are taking a stand against corporate avarice and advocating for equitable wealth distribution. These demands seem to be in line with the WEF's agenda. But is there a direct connection between the WEF's agenda and these strikes, or is it merely a case of covert manipulation? It's difficult to assert with certainty. What we can note, though, is that the narrative of economic disparity and the clamor for a more inclusive economy is a worldwide one, reverberated by the WEF and resonating with workers on the ground. Notably, the WEF's agenda extends further than labor rights. It pertains to broader concerns such as climate change, technological progressions, and geopolitical conflicts, all of which could potentially yield detrimental effects on labor markets and economic equality. So it might be alluring to perceive these strikes as disconnected happenings, but they are indeed a part of a larger, potentially manipulative global narrative. These events reflect a mounting dissatisfaction with economic inequality and a yearning for change, a yearning potentially exploited in the WEF's agenda. The World Economic Forum's agenda is not just a prospectus for the future but possibly a covert force influencing current events. In a surprising move, the governor of New Mexico recently enforced a ban on guns during a health emergency. This decision has raised a storm of debate, with critics arguing that it infringes on Second Amendment rights, while supporters believe it is a necessary measure for public safety. The decision has rattled the public, sparking protests and counter-protests across the state. The ban is seen by some as an overreach of power, a threat to their constitutional rights. Others, however, see it as a pragmatic move to prevent potential violence during a time of heightened tension. This ban has the potential to exacerbate the current situation, sparking further discontent and division. It could fuel the ongoing strikes, offering another cause to rally around, another grievance to air. And how will this decision affect the political landscape? Will it push more people towards radical ideologies, or will it encourage dialogue and compromise? Only time will tell. This event in New Mexico is another piece of the puzzle, adding to the complexity of our current political landscape. It serves as a reminder that the issues we face are multifaceted, interwoven in a complex web of politics, economics, and social dynamics. As we move forward, it's crucial that we keep an eye on these developments, understanding that they are part of a larger narrative. Could these strikes and political changes be leading us towards a civil war? It's a question that seems to hang in the air, a specter looming over the nation. The political landscape of our time is fraught with tension and division, a chasm yawning wider with each passing day. It's a divide that's not just about left versus right, but about fundamental differences in how we envision our society. Remember January 6th? The storming of the Capitol wasn't a singular event, but rather an eruption of the simmering discontent and polarization that has been building in our nation. It served as a stark reminder of the potential for violence when political discourse breaks down. Now, consider the strikes sweeping across industries. United auto workers, writers, actors, all demanding better working conditions and pay. These are not isolated incidents, but part of a larger narrative. A narrative of people feeling unheard, undervalued, and pushed to their limits. These strikes could potentially stoke the flames of civil unrest, as more and more people feel the pinch of economic inequality and job insecurity. Then, there are the recent political changes. The Democratic Party's move to alter primary rules, for instance, has sown seeds of discontent, with accusations of disenfranchisement and political maneuvering. Such actions may further alienate certain groups, adding fuel to an already volatile situation. The path to civil war is not set in stone, but the signs are there. We need to pay attention. Indeed, these are troubling times, and they call for vigilance, for open dialogue, and for a concerted effort to bridge the divide before it grows any wider. The Democratic Party's recent move to change its primary rules could disenfranchise voters and disqualify delegates from New Hampshire and Vermont. In an attempt to reflect the changing demographics of the country and give more prominence to black voters, the Democratic Party is considering moving its first presidential primary to South Carolina. This shift in the primary schedule could potentially push Iowa from its long-standing position as the first state to hold caucuses. The proposed primary schedule would see South Carolina go first, followed by New Hampshire, Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan. This change comes amidst allegations that the party's base has started to crack in key states and districts, with a lower turnout of Black and Latino voters. While this move is being hailed by some as a necessary step towards diversity and inclusivity, it has also sparked controversy. There are concerns that it could disenfranchise voters and disqualify delegates from New Hampshire and Vermont if a candidate campaigns there. This could potentially lead to disputes within the party and further fuel the wave of strikes and unrest we're seeing across various sectors. These new primary rules are more than just a change in procedure. They reflect the shifting political landscape, the changing demographics of the country, and the growing demand for diversity and representation. But they also come with potential pitfalls and could lead to further divisions within the party and the country. The ties between these new rules, the rising wave of strikes, and the World Economic Forum's agenda cannot be ignored. We're witnessing a larger political shift, and these events are all interconnected. They are all part of the same narrative, the same movement, the same struggle for change. The Democratic Party's new rules are not just a change in procedure but a sign of the times, and they could have far-reaching implications. So, what does all this mean for the future? We've journeyed through the rising wave of strikes, the hidden agenda of the World Economic Forum, the brewing civil unrest, and the Democratic Party's new primary rules. These events are not isolated. They are interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle, signaling a seismic shift in our socio-political landscape. These are uncertain times, but one thing is clear: change is coming, and we need to be ready for it.